I invited my parents over to my house to surprise them with a gift from my first big paycheck, but they didn't believe me and laughed at. In face once a black sheep, always a black sheep. My golden child sister forwarded them. These pictures from my FB and suddenly I'm their favorite daughter? I called my parents and invited them to dinner at my place. I just received my first big paycheck and wanted to celebrate this milestone by doing something special for them. A gesture to show my gratitude and love. After dinner, I planned on surprising them with tickets to a luxurious 5-star resort, a fully paid 3-day getaway where they wouldn't have to spend a single penny. I wanted the three of us to relax and enjoy ourselves. This was a token of everything I've worked toward. It was my way of saying, I've made it, and I want to share this moment with you. When my parents came over for dinner, I was excited to show them my home and share more about my work. But from the moment they stepped inside, their attitude towards me made it clear they weren't impressed. First, they looked suspiciously around the apartment and kept asking if I really lived here. Then once I convinced them that this was really my place, my dad wandered around like a detective opening drawers, checking behind furniture, and even peeking under the sink. He repeatedly asked if I had hidden drugs somewhere, as if he couldn't believe that I was truly clean now that I was living on my own with no supervision. For context, I am the black sheep of my family. I am the child who made the grave mistake of getting involved with drugs during my high school years. This choice led to a dark and painful chapter in my life where I had to attend a treatment center to recover. I recognize now how much anguish and heartache I caused my parents during this time. They've told me on several occasions how my actions brought shame to the family's reputation back then. While hearing those words stings, I understand why they felt that way. One of the most shameful things I've done and something I deeply regret was stealing from my own mother just to buy more drugs. That betrayal of trust still weighs heavily on me. And if I could go back in time, I would give anything to stop myself from behaving that way. I fully accept responsibility for the choices I made and the pain I caused to my parents during those difficult years. However, I had worked very, very hard to turn my life around. Did my dad truly think so little of me that I would still use drugs even after I had repeatedly assured him and mom that I had left those habits behind? Even at the dinner table when I brought up my first paycheck and told them how proud I felt about my new job, my mom undercut the moment with a cruel joke. She said, "More money means more drugs for you, doesn't it?" My dad found this hilarious and started laughing along with her. I sat there, humiliated and hurt, trying to process what more I could say to make them believe me. I asked them outright why they kept bringing up my past and why they couldn't let it go and just see me for who I am now. My dad didn't hesitate to respond and said, "People never change. No matter how shiny your job is or how much money you make, you're still an addict in my eyes." He then went on a rant about how much money he had spent on me over the years, framing me as nothing but a burden to him and how he had spent even more by sending me to that treatment center. He argued that if I was really earning as much as I claimed, then the least I could do for him was start paying all the money back. I was stunned at how cruel his words were. I argued back, reminding him that I had been very young when I made those mistakes and that I was actually grieving at the time. I told him how hard I'd worked to rebuild my life since then, and it wasn't fair for them to keep throwing my past in my face whenever they felt like it. I expected understanding or at least a moment of reflection from them. But instead, my mom looked at me dead in the eye and said, with a taunting smile, "Once a black sheep, always a black sheep." Hearing that was like a punch to the gut. I had hoped this dinner would be a step toward mending our relationship, a chance for them to see the person I had become. But instead, it felt like they were determined to keep me trapped in the version of me that no longer existed. I realized then how much weight I had carried for years, trying to earn their approval only to see that no matter what I did in their eyes, I would always be the disappointment. I know I caused them grief during those few difficult years when I was younger, and I've taken responsibility for my actions time and time again. But constantly bringing it up, using it to humiliate me even now felt deeply wrong. I've been trying to move on, to grow, to prove that I'm not the person I was back then, yet they couldn't seem to let it go. It was like no matter how far I came, they were determined to keep me chained to my mistakes. After my mom's cutting remark, I couldn't muster the energy to argue anymore. I sat there quietly for the rest of the dinner while my parents carried on. The focus of their conversation shifted to my sister, Serena, the golden child. They bragged about how she was excelling in life, how all her teachers adored her, and how she was always winning accolades. Hearing them praise her felt like a knife twisting in my chest.